Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on Sirius XM, and of course Dallas Cowboys Radio Network joins us now. We'll talk Cowboys at the end. Paul, Catalina, and Garrett Ross. The Smokes are on a Father's Day trip today, so that's why you just get us. But Ari joins us now, and Ari, earlier this week, we got the announcement, official announcement. We all kind of knew it was coming that 2023 will be the 14-team Big 12, and the new schools are in. What's the reaction been like for you and your show, and with all these teams coming in, and the prospect now of this 14-team conference, and the games that could be pretty wild for at least a year?
Yeah, Paul. I mean, there are a lot of moving pieces here, and so you're trying to kind of make sense of all of them, while also recognizing, that in July at Big 12 Media Days next month and out here in Arlington, we're going to have a new commissioner too. So, we talked with Bob Bowlesby on Big 12 Radio this week, and there's a lot that he said that was really interesting and intriguing in terms of what this conference will look like, decisions that he's making on his way out versus, what the new commissioner will do. But look, I mean, the biggest thing for everybody here is what's this TV deal going to look like? And, when you look at some of the projections that have been out there, many have the Big 12 sliding to fifth in terms of the Power Five on the scale. And, he basically said he does not believe that is grounded in reality. He said he does not acknowledge the slide from third to fifth in terms of the television money. And, look, he knows he's in these conversations. He's been in these conversations. He has a good idea of the landscape. And so I think, you look at this conference, as you mentioned, it'll go from 10 to 14 teams, and then it could be 14 teams for 2 seasons, or it could be at 14 teams for just 1 season, and then go back to 12 after the 2023 season into 2024. Texas and OU are contracted to be in the Big 12 through its rights deal through 2025, so it's either 1 or 2 years of 14 teams with Texas and OU. And Brian Davis of the Austin American Statesman a couple of weeks ago reported that Texas was looking to get out by 2024. So, that still remains to be seen when exactly the exit will be. And so then we can kind of have a better understanding. And, I think from the Big 12's perspective, it's you hold on to Texas and OU as long as you can. And more important than that, though, is beating them and doing exactly what happened last year. Having 2 teams play in the Big 12 championship, like Baylor and Oklahoma State, 2 future members of the conference. We need to continue to prop up the conference through using Texas and Oklahoma to show our dominance.
Ari, speaking of the new Big 12 conference, Big 12 commissioner, do you have anybody in mind, or do you have a preference of who you would like to see take over that role?
It's a great question. I can't give you specific names because I'm just not, I don't know as much as the presidents who are doing this search know. The big talking point would be, do you go with the George Kliavkoff hire, which is sort of the outsider, so to bring some fresh blood, new eyes to college athletics, or do you go with somebody that's been in college athletics? And, I understand the propensity for everybody within the Big 12. Many of the opinions on this I've heard are they should be somebody accustomed to college athletics. I just think, get somebody that is a really good leader that understands leadership and understands how to lead and keep everybody together on the same page. You also need somebody that's creative, that's going to figure out ways to get creative with television revenue. Wherever the Big 12 is with its next TV deal, it's still going to pale in comparison to what the SEC and the Big 10 are getting. And that's the nature of the beast for the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12 moving forward, is how to make up for that very, very large pitfall chasm between, what the SEC and the Big 10 are going to get versus the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the ACC. So somebody that's creative, that can think of new ways to get in front of new audiences, to potentially put together deals that from a television standpoint that, can try to make up for that. So, I'd be fine with an outsider. It's funny because in this brave new world of college athletics, you kind of see so many of the long-time administrators within college athletics struggling to figure out how to evolve into this new world. And so the more I think about that, the more I'm swayed towards more of a George Kliavkoff hire. There's obviously a learning curve there, but there are very good administrators within this conference that will stick around if they so choose, like a Bob Berta, who he's been around college athletics a long, long time. So if you've got somebody that's sort of an outside perspective coming in as a commissioner that has good guidance from folks like Alberta or somebody else that's been in college athletics a long time, I think that's probably the best way to go. But you need new blood. This is, you have so many long-time college administrators that are just so married to the old system, and it's many of them, athletic directors, whatever, they think that old world is coming back in some capacity, literally. I know of administrators that believe that that's going to happen. You just need somebody that's forward-thinking, that's not, married to these old guard, old ways of doing things that are on the up and up with what's happening and what's changing about college athletics right now.
Yeah, Ari, I like that you said that, because I think that's the biggest thing that anybody's going to need. Part of the reason that college athletics was stuck in the mud, and look, Jim, I'll just use the example of Jim Delaney in the Big Ten, was a very powerful conference commissioner, but he wasn't going to budge on how he thought things should be, and was going to use all the weight of it, even though the world had probably left him behind already and where it was going. And it's because of guys like that the college athletics was stuck in the mud. They need somebody who's just going to go, why do we do that again? Does that make sense in this century? And most of the time when you're talking about the NCAA, the answer is no, it doesn't.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, you have administrators, athletic directors at universities across the country that they're resistant to NIL. And so they're just trying to do things that are, at the bare minimum of what's being required of them and nothing beyond that. And, there's a belief, again, oh, okay, I'm just going to do the bare minimum for now because, over the course, these laws will be retracted, or, the rules will be retracted. There's guidelines. You just cannot think that way. And it's, as you mentioned, it's basically the way that college athletics has operated for 130 years. So you do need new ideas, new influences, new people walking through the door of the commissioner's office to understand the what's changing and how to stay in front of what's changing. The Big 12 is in a position now to where you need to make certain drastic gambles. And I'm not saying do that with the commissioner, but I'm saying, maybe you go all in with Apple TV and you take your games off of linear television. Apple TV just signed a deal with MLS that's twice as much as the MLS got. There are hundreds of college football games in the Big 12 that are doing significantly more ratings than the best, most highest rated MLS game. So if Apple TV says we'll take all of your games in inventory and we'll pay you 3 times as much as your last television deal, I'm not saying that that's realistic, but I mean, Apple TV has a market cap, and I want to shout out Chris Williams from Cyclone Fanatic, who did a fantastic piece on this. It's 10 times that of Disney, 10 times the market cap of Disney. So they have the money and the infrastructure, Apple does, to go after and make big bets and investments in sports. They are MLS, baseball. There's obviously rumors that they're going after the Sunday ticket. So, I understand that, moving all of the inventory onto a platform like an Apple TV, Apple Plus isn't great, in terms of linear television and getting off of ESPN, but these are the kinds of things you have to be thinking about and looking at as you take over. And I think some of the traditional folks, within college athletics aren't thinking that way.
Ari, with the new teams coming in, and obviously Texas and Oklahoma looking to exit when they do, if you're a Big 12 fan, or is there any concern from Big 12 perspective that it could be bad if these new teams face Oklahoma and Texas before they leave and they just get obliterated, or they split the series with the Sooners and the Horns and then they leave the conference like, okay, well, we just blasted everybody y'all brought in. How bad would that look as a whole for the Big 12?
Blasted by Texas?
I know right now that sounds funny. I know. Let's say Oklahoma in general.
No, I mean, look, you're right. It's the idea of using Oklahoma and Texas over the next few years to prop yourself up. It cuts both ways, right? That's a dangerous game to play. Obviously, Baylor wins a Big 12 championship this past year in football, but it's been a long time since anybody not named Oklahoma had won a Big 12 championship, right? So, yeah, no doubt, if Oklahoma continues to win and dominate this league over the next couple of years, regardless of it's the new members or not, it's basically, it behooves the current members. If Texas and OU are going to be in this conference for the next 3 years, next 3 seasons, one this season and then the next 2 after that with 14 teams, it 100% is imperative for the future viability of this league to show dominance and play for Big 12 championships, and not just roll over and have Texas and Oklahoma, or Oklahoma win this conference. Texas is getting better, and you look at this recruiting class coming in from their offensive line perspective. pancake club or not, it's going to be good in a couple of years once these, 5-star and 4-star kids along the offensive line become, sophomores and juniors, and that's going to be over the next couple of years while they're still in this league. So, yeah, I mean, look, 100%. But BYU is going to be really good this year. BYU's been a consistent program. Can't wait for that BYU-Baylor game this year. Cincinnati is going to be really good as long as Luke Fickell is there. So at least right now in the immediate future, it looks like this conference is going to have the firepower to at least show well for itself. But absolutely, I mean, it cuts both ways. It's really important for the Big 12 to be in position to win conference championships, the new Big 12, as opposed to ceding the conference championships to the old Big 12 in Oklahoma and Texas.
Ari, to the Cowboys now. You were at mini camp the one day that they had it, and Mike McCarthy somehow becomes the first guy to have less practice, but somehow be more physical and get fined for it. But whatever that is, it is what it is. He's not the only coach in the league that went through that. But this is a team very much in transition as far as the offensive line goes, wide receiver goes. Experience on the defense. What can you say to Cowboys fans that hope that they can hit at least that 12-win mark that they had last season?
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys seem to do better when the expectations are low, like they seem to be this year. Yeah, I mean, they have major question marks along their offensive line, and they've got interesting names and good competition. I can't wait to see how this plays out in training camp. I wouldn't feel great if Tyler Biadasz is starting at center from day one. I just don't know that we've seen anything from his first couple of years in the league that indicates that he's your best option at center. Very curious to see, the plan at left guard and left tackle, especially given that, you hope Tyron Smith can play and be available for 17 games, but he just hasn't shown the ability to do that over the last 5 seasons. So, do they then shift Tyler Smith from left guard to left tackle when that happens, or are they going to keep him at left guard? And then the right tackle situation, how set is that with Terrence Steele? So, but all of this, guys, goes back to what happened to Dak Prescott at the end of the season last year. Look, I mean, obviously Dak's a polarizing player for a lot of Cowboy fans. He's been a really prolific quarterback for this team since he's been in the league and has gotten better and better. But he was bad last year, especially at the end of the season, and he was a big reason why they didn't get further in the playoffs, without a doubt. We heard throughout that period that he was not injured. It was not anything like that. But I hope that's the case, quite frankly, because if not, I don't like the alternative, because he was not good. And so you want to attribute that to injury and health. That was the reason he was as bad as he was towards the end of the season last year. So none of the other stuff really matters unless Dak Prescott is playing at the level that he is capable of playing at the beginning of the season last year when he was first 4 weeks an MVP type candidate. But we saw when he, when he's not as good, that this team's obviously not nearly as good and has a much lower ceiling. I'm really excited to see CeeDee Lamb in the spot that he's at. I think he's going to explode this year. And the two battles to watch for in training camp will be the offensive line and wide receiver groups. I just think there's some interesting battles playing out, and there's open roster spots for undrafted free agents, guys like that Lindstrom from Boston College, and other guys, and then Ty Freifogel is a guy that I've been impressed with, and from what I've seen from both camp and mini camps. Obviously, it's hard to take much away, but I think it'll just be interesting. I think there's spots open for some of these undrafted free agents, guys that you wouldn't expect, especially at the offensive line and wide receiver position.
Yeah, but he was hurt last year. He did get hurt. He missed a game. He missed one and then had a bye week. It's reasonable to think that it was lingering. And the other thing is that once Zeke hit the wall, Ari, the Kellen Moore, Dak Prescott, Mike McCarthy, and everybody else never really adjusted to the fact that Zeke wasn't 100% either. And of course, the offensive line was bad pretty much the whole time. So all those things seemed to they never really admitted that to themselves until the season was over.
No doubt. And look, I mean, the big thing is Tony Pollard. We kept hearing that, they just don't trust Pollard in pass protection. He's not a 3-down back. And I mean, they're at the point right now where it's like, well, if he's not, then you got to move on. Then because you need a new 3-down back, because that's not Zeke Elliott. It's just unrealistic to expect a guy at this stage of his career with all the wear and tear that he has to be able to play at a high level consistently. And on top of that, you're basically telling the defense what you're doing based on who you have out there, because they know if Pollard's out there, he's going to carry the football because they don't trust him in pass protection. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing is it's like they keep saying they don't trust Tony Pollard in pass protection. Is it that they don't trust him or that they think Zeke's better? Whatever the case is, Pollard has to be your feature back. He's got to be a 3-down guy. If he's not, it's probably time to figure out who that needs to be because it can't be Zeke Elliott. And, I mean, I hate to say that, but that's just where he is. He's not going to get better at this point in time. He's old and getting older, and there's a lot of wear and tear of that body. So I absolutely agree with you. They completely mishandled the running back situation, and it was exacerbated, obviously, by the offensive line. And Dak was injured, but they kept saying that he was healthy to play and good to go, and that it wasn't the shoulder. It was, that he's fine. And again, I mean, I hope that it was because otherwise the alternative is really bad, that he's regressed and, maybe already hit his ceiling. But it's the same deal. It's a young man's game. And, he first 4 years of his career, he didn't miss a game. And then obviously he missed the majority of the season. He missed games last year. Like the older you get, we all see this in our 30s and beyond. The older you get, the harder it is to get out of bed. And the NFL players are no different.
Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio, and, of course, Dallas Cowboys Radio Network. Ari, thanks for hopping on last minute today. Really appreciate it. Always great to talk to you, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Great talking to you, Paul. Be well.
All right. Ari Temkin, great guy. Love Ari and I have hung out at Super Bowls and stuff before. He's a great guy. Anyway, and you've been on his show. They do great stuff there. All right, when we come